Hello everyone, this is Brett and this is Record Store Day 2020, drop number 3, Vinyl Haul. Before we get to that, I pulled 5 things out from the collection from past Record Store Days, personal favorites that I've acquired since the start of Record Store Day. And I thought I'd show them to you before we get to the new stuff. This one goes back to 2011. Big Star 3rd, the test pressing set. Omnivore Records put this one out. It was limited to 2,000 copies. They recreated the original 1/4-inch tape box. When a band would record in the studio to tape, then they would mix it down to a 1/4-inch, and then they would send that out and then get the test pressings made. And that's what they recreated here. 15 inches per second, sorry, Dolby. And this is such a beautiful set. I was so happy to get this when it came out. And the record itself, white label, plain white label, as often are test pressings. And then the coolest part about this is this little satchel or pouch. I already pulled some things out of it that contains track logs for each song. When you record, every instrument goes on a separate track usually. Sometimes in the earlier days they would put multiple things on the same tracks or bounce them over. But in this case, this is what an engineer or mixer would use to know what's on each track, so they're pulling faders and they know what everything's accounted for and where everything's at. So it's not some big guessing game. Plus it's also good for the future if they pull this out, 40 years later, then they have reference as to what was on it. So for example, Blue Moon, the song, track 2, acoustic and bass, track 3, vocals, 4 and 5 were the guitars. What do you know? Track 10 had bassoon on it. And then the other thing that's, this is great. It includes a stapled packet of the lead sheets for all the songs. Lead sheets are, they include the chords, the melody, and the lyrics for all the songs. So, they use that often for copywriting and also for arrangements when they're giving it for studio musicians that come in and play bassoon so they can follow the chart and the melody. So this was just great. And from what I remember back then, there were 5 actual box sets that had 5 original the original test pressings just randomly inserted in. Out of the 2,005 people were able to get an original test pressing in there. So it was like some Willy Wonka stuff with the golden ticket. But yeah, Big Star 3rd, the test pressing set. All right, let's go to 2013. This is Porno for Pyro's debut album from 1993. Post Jane's Addiction, Perry Farrell and Stephen Perkins, along with Peter DiStefano and then Martine Lenoble. This came out in April of '93. I saw them just right before this album came out, Compton Terrace in Chandler, Arizona. They played with Rage Against the Machine, Best Kissers in the World, X, Robin Hitchcock and the Egyptians. This one is limited to 1,000 copies on blue. This is the UK/Australia. Old friend of mine, Anthony, had sent me this. Thank you again, Anthony. And for the American version, it was a tie-dye color. And my friend Dream Pop Jesse and I had waited at a record store that morning, and the guy that was right in front of us grabbed the last copy, so I was super disappointed. But then my friend Anthony came through and sent me this very nice, unique imported version. And then Porno for Pyros would put out Good God's Urge 3 years later, and then that was their final record. Although Perry's reformed Jane's Addiction was one of the reasons why. And but this year's Lollapalooza quarantine version, Porno for Pyros did a little set all masked up in one of the guys' front yard. Hopefully they'll get together and put out a new record. That would be great to hear some stuff from them. All right, then that takes us to 2014, and this is a double. These were put out in limited quantities of 500 each. And this is Red Temple Spirits, Los Angeles, tribal, post-punk, goth rock. Dancing to Restore an Eclipse Moon. And then if tomorrow I were leaving for Lhasa, I wouldn't stay a minute more, ... What I really like about this one is if tomorrow I were leaving. Spelling mistake right there on the cover. So happy to have these. They're great, and they're hard to find originals. And my favorite one off of the first album, favorite tracks, Electric Flowers and Dark Spirits. Highly recommend checking this out, by the way, so take notes on this. City of Millions, Soft Machine, and Beautiful Alice. Red Temple Spirits, as I said, limited to 500 copies each. Yeah, they both came out. The debut was 88. The second album was 89, and then shortly after the band was done. So it's a little snapshot of some cool LA post-punk history. Red Temple Spirits. 2017. So if you watched my Record Store Day Drop #1 video, I started off with the reissue that came out of And Also the Trees, their debut album, and it was put out by Greyface Records. They did an incredibly beautiful job. You can always reference that just to see the quality. Well, they did this release by Blind Mr. Jones back in 2017, and their 1992 debut album, Blind Mr. Jones, shoegaze with flute, baroque gaze, so good. A very kind of little known group from that era. You know, bands like My Bloody Valentine, Slowdive Ride get a lot of the acclaim, but this was the original cover. Stereo Musicale. This is phenomenal. They included inner sleeves. It's a double record, all printed inner sleeves, just so well done. It gives you a breakdown what's included on this edition. It has all the tracks from the Eyes Wide EP from 92, the Crazy Jazz EP also from 92, Spooky Vibes from 94, and the entire Stereo Musicale album, and then some other tracks, including a 7-inch with Featherweight, and then a demo. That's on this like purple grimacy grape color. And then the album itself spread across 2 records. The first one is on this nice feathery red with some black interspersed in there. And the second record is on this nice opaque clear with some red flourishes in there as well. Highly recommend checking out Blind Mr. Jones. They put out an album 2 years after this called Tatooine, Star Wars reference, and then they were done shortly after this. So this is another one of those like snapshots of a band that wasn't around very long, and that a lot of people aren't familiar with, but are great. So that's Blind Mr. Jones. That was limited to 750 copies. Excuse me, the label that released it once again is Greyface. There's copies of this. I was looking this up, and there's copies of this still for cheap. So do not pass up on this one. Check out the song Spooky Vibes, and you'll hear the contrast with that shoegazy music along with that flute in there. So it's got these orchestral flourishes in there. It's so beautifully done. So that takes us now to 2020. All right. Only grabbed one thing. Everything else that I saw, I was either not interested in or I had it already. And this is Lou Reed and John Cale, Songs for Drell. This is one of my favorite albums from 1990. I posted a video recently with my 10 favorite albums of 1990, so be sure to check that out. It's from over the last few weeks. So Lou Reed and John Cale, bandmates in the Velvet Underground. They hadn't worked together since the White Light, White Heat album, the second one. And then they got back together in 1990 after the passing of Andy Warhol, who you can see here. Drella, Songs for Drella, Dracula, Cinderella. It was kind of a nickname for Andy Warhol. And they wrote songs all about his life. The song Open House on here, which I referenced in that 1990 video, is so emotional and so powerful. This one is limited to actually a lot of copies. I think it's 8,500, so you should have no problem finding that one. It's spread out across 2 records. It's got nice black polyline sleeves. It's got an insert with the lyrics and credits. And then the really cool part about this, besides it being a great album, is on side 4. Hopefully I can get this to show. There it is. You can see side 4 has an etching, and there's Andy Warhol right there. So beautifully done. So cool. Yeah, so that's what I picked up. I just got the one thing for this, for the drop number 3. There's some cool things coming up on Black Friday's Record Store Day. We're getting like 4 in a row here, 4 months. Lots of cool releases. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Talk to you soon. Goodbye. Goodbye.